So it's been a little bit of a tough week in the stock market and for my investment portfolio, with growth stocks selling off towards the back end of the week. But then on Friday, the whole stock market actually sold off, with the S&P 500 down 75 basis points and closing out the week down just over 1%. But is this the very start of what could be a possible market crash, or is this just a slight dip in the overall long-term upside trajectory of the S&P 500? So I thought what we'd do in today's video is take a very quick look at my investment portfolio. I'll show you its recent performance, and then we'll dive onto some stock charts, do some technical analysis, and make some shorter-term price forecasts for some of the stocks in which I'm specifically invested in. But before I do so, guys, my name's Mitch. I post all kinds of videos on investing and the stock market. If you do enjoy content like that, hit that big red subscribe button down below, so I'll drop a like on the video, guys. Really helps out the channel. That being said, let's dive straight onto the stock charts. So first up, my Trading212 investment portfolio. You can see my current account value is £19,209.56. We have a portfolio value, the actual invested amount, of £15,406, and then we have free funds just under £4,000, which I have there, and I'm certainly ready to deploy as and when I see a good opportunity to do so. And this most recent stock market sell-off may be a little bit of an opportunity to start putting some of those free funds back into this investment portfolio. But in terms of the performance, well, over the course of the past week or so, you can see that we started the week out with the portfolio up about 18%, valued at £15,673. At the very peak of the week, we were up about 20% overall on the whole portfolio, up about £2,674. Total portfolio value sitting just shy of £16,000. However, closing out the week as the stock market sold off over the course of the back end of the week, more specifically, we finished the week off up 16% on the whole for the whole portfolio. But we're down about £500 in terms of that net return on investment, or unrealized return on investment, that you can see within the portfolio. So that's the portfolio returns. In terms of the holdings within the portfolio, you can see the top holding right now is Apple, weighted at about 21%, followed by Tesla, just under 19%. We've then got Amazon, Facebook, AMD, Palantir, AstraZeneca, Tattooed Chef, and then the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. So they're the top holdings within my investment portfolio. But now let's dive into the stock charts, and I'll give you guys my thoughts and my own personal stock price forecasts and stock price predictions on these stocks in which I'm invested into. So bringing up the stock charts now, you can see over on the right hand side I have my watch list of stocks, which includes a couple of world market indices as well, like the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the FTSE 100 as well. But on the whole, you can see as of Friday, every single stock in which I have on my watch list was certainly in the red. The S&P 500 being one of them, you can see from this weekly point of view, made huge amounts of upside momentum over the course of the past 12 months. Looking at this from a kind of lows of the market up until kind of Friday's close, up 96.5% in just over a 12-month period. Considering the average rate of return for the S&P 500 is about 9.8% per year, we've seen pretty much 10 years worth of return on investment for the S&P 500 within the space of a year. So phenomenal numbers. We could potentially see a market correction, a market crash at any given point in time, and I think you certainly have to be prepared for that, driven by just how much upside we've seen for the S&P 500 over the course of the past 12 and a bit months. But in terms of the stocks in which I'm invested in, well, the first stock in which I want to have a look at is Advanced Micro Devices. You guys can see from that weekly time frame, once again, we're very much range bound and have been for the best part of a year. Between $74 per share as an area of support and $98 per share as an area of resistance. We did very much see quite a lot of upside momentum off this $74 region of support at the back end of May. However, we weren't able to sustain that momentum. We had a big bullish week of the 28th of June, but as of the past 2 weeks, AMD stock prices started to sell off once again without actually heading up to or even touching that $98 area of resistance. Which means for AMD stock price, for the best part of about 350 days, we've been pretty much trading sideways. Well, arguably we're slightly up somewhat, but not by a fat lot. We're up about 10% over the course of the past, nearly 12 months now for AMD stock price. For me personally, it's a massively undervalued stock in the semiconductor space. We've seen stocks like Nvidia absolutely skyrocket over the course of the past 12 months. However, AMD hasn't quite seen that same level of stock price demand or stock price buy-in from investors that we've seen for the likes of other competitors within the industry like Nvidia. But as we haven't seen that same level of investor optimism for AMD, despite very, very positive earnings reports so far throughout the course of 2021 so far, the stock price just hasn't quite taken off as it has done over most recent years, and that's something certainly not to rule out. Over the course of the past few years, we've seen huge amounts of upside for AMD stock. For me personally, this is a $100 stock all day long, but at the moment, it's obviously not performing quite to those expectations. As of right now, trading at about $86 per share. So in terms of where I believe this stock is going to go, well, when we drop it down onto the daily time frame, for me personally, this looks like it's very much lined up for some more downside. If we kind of draw this counter trend line here, it looks like as of Friday, we've possibly broken below that counter trend line. We could very much head back towards that $74 per share region. That would not be a surprise to me whatsoever, and potentially see a sell-off somewhere in the realms of about 13-14%, which is, again, pretty significant in terms of that downside. But nonetheless, whilst we're trading in no man's land, just range bound up and down until we get a definitive break to the upside or potentially to the downside, it's very difficult to just kind of predict where this stock price is going to go in the near term. But nonetheless, I will certainly use this as an opportunity to further cost average my way into this stock. The next company which I want to look at is going to be Amazon. Now, over the course of, if I just drop this to the weekly time frame, again, similar story to AMD on the basis that we've been very much range bound between $3,500 per share and about $3,000 per share, trading in the realms of support and resistance, and really failed to break out of that region since pretty much over the course of the past 12 months, from very much the start of July last year. However, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've finally broken that $3,500 level of resistance. We've broken higher. However, as of last week, we kind of sold off once again and very much weren't able to maintain some of the gains in which were made on the week of the 6th of July. So when we drop this down into the daily time frame, well, for me personally, this could very much just be a bit of a pullback play as part of what looks like to be a bit of a bullish move in price. If we line up a fib from the highs to the lows, or Fibonacci retracement, you can kind of see that the 38.2 as well as the 50% Fibonacci retracement levels kind of line up with that 3,500 region of prior resistance, which could act as support and potentially see the price of Amazon stock head higher once again, possibly with an upside price forecast in the realms of just shy of $4,000 per share, which would see roughly about a 12% upside move for Amazon stock price over the course of, well, possibly towards the back end of this year or even into 2022. The next stock which I want to look at is Apple, one that's been in a huge upside momentum over the course of most recent weeks. From the 3rd of July market lows up until, Friday's market price, we are up 19%, just shy of 19%. Trading just under $150 per share now for Apple. We've also broken new all-time highs for Apple share price as well. So this thing is very much heading in the upward direction on the whole. If we do see a little bit of a pullback for Apple stock price, I think you could certainly expect that, as we're up 20% in the past month or two alone. If we see a little bit of a pullback, I don't see any harm in that whatsoever. The only thing I am very conscious of for Apple stock is that we've been very much in a long-term or longer-term upward trend, you could say, over the course of the past 12 months specifically. And it really has taken off. And if I drop to the weekly time frame, you can kind of just see we're very much in like almost parabolic territory, which for me makes me feel a little bit uneasy to the fact that we could potentially see a bit of a sell-off play out. If we kind of see what looks like to be a 1, a 2, and potentially even a third rejection of the highs of this trend line, we could potentially see a breakout, and Apple stock price could potentially fall as low as September market lows last year of about $103 per share, which again doesn't feel like all that long ago and would be the equivalent to about a 30% sell-off if we do see that kind of break to the downside on Apple's stock price. Again, all of these stocks, they cannot continue to move in just straight lines and to the upside. It's just simply not possible for that to happen for a huge long duration of time. So because of that, I'm going to have to make some bold predictions that we could see some significant sell-offs across some of my favorite stocks in which I'm invested into, just based on the nature of the upside momentum in which we've seen, which simply can't go on forever. The next stock in which I have on the list is Facebook. This one most recently hit actually my upside target of $351 per share, which I shared with you guys on this channel many weeks ago, probably even months ago now, from a bit of technical analysis in which I did. And that technical analysis was simply lining up this Fibonacci retracement from market highs, or previous market highs, to previous market lows. And we lined up very nicely with this minus 27% Fibonacci extension. We also identified what looked like to be a bit of a bull flag, a consolidation period within the market, which certainly looked like it had impulsed. We were then seeing this corrective play, and I was forecasting this upside correction, which has certainly played out. But now we've fulfilled these upside targets, well, where is the next possible move for Facebook to go? Well, on the whole sentiment of the rest of the market looking a little bit like it's heading towards the downside, we could very much see Facebook stock head a little bit towards the downside as well. But on the overall, I'm pretty still optimistic on Facebook's future and long-term outlook. So because of that, whilst we might see some downward pressure over the coming weeks, potentially months ahead, just depending on how the stock market plays out. Of course, for me personally, over the course of the long term, I'm still optimistic that this will head higher. And for me, those upside targets, obviously maintaining an optimistic outlook, I'm going to forecast the minus 61.8 Fibonacci extension as the next upside target at just over about $405 per share. The next company which I want to take a very quick look at is Tesla. I've got a couple of different ways of analyzing this chart, but I'll present one thesis to you guys today. The first one being, as like some of the other stocks in which we've looked at, we've seen huge amounts of upside momentum for Tesla along with the others as well. But then over the course of the past couple of months, we've been a little bit corrective, certainly trading in a downward trend. As you can see, we're seeing lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs posted. We could potentially see a lower low form. But one thing that I am taking a little bit of optimism from is the fact that we are very much holding on this area of what looks like to be support at about $545 per share, should I say. The only kind of downside, I guess, you could potentially argue is when we drop this to the daily time frame. And again, it depends on which way you look at the stock chart, but we do arguably have a couple of trend lines which we can identify with. The first one being the one in which I've just drawn, where we could potentially line up with a downside impulse, what looks like to be a bit of an ascending channel, but a correction which could result in further downside for Tesla's stock. The other way in which you could potentially look at it is if I remove that ascending channel, we see this as a larger impulsive move to the upside, correction, breakout. This could correct now with outside this channel, and then make another move to the upside over the coming months ahead. So for me, the long-term forecast for Tesla still is an optimistic one. Again, I would expect that we will revisit all-time highs once again for Tesla. When that will be, I'm not too sure, but I am very still optimistic that we could very much see that $885 region hit, or potentially even up to about $900 per share over the course of perhaps the next 12 to 18 months. The penultimate stock in which I want to take a look at in today's video is going to be Palantir Technologies. We did very much see that upside forecasted region of $27.50 per share hit. However, unfortunately, we weren't able to break that region of resistance, and since we've actually headed quite a bit lower, and we've sold off quite rapidly actually over the course of the past 3 weeks, with Palantir losing about 22% of its value in the past 3 weeks alone, which isn't great in terms of that overall downside momentum. But when we drop to the daily time frame, hopefully we're starting to see some deceleration kick back in at this area of support around $21.50. And hopefully this will be a bit of a catalyst for an upside move after this point, driven by the fact that we've seen what looks like to be a bit of a bullish impulse. Hopefully this is a pullback, and then hopefully we see more upside. But if I'm honest with you guys, I'm not seeing it playing out like that just at the moment, and there is potential that we could break below that $21.50 region of support and head lower once again. The technicals on this don't look too fantastic. We've got a couple of regions of support and resistance in which we're obviously looking at. If we break lower, potentially we could revisit kind of the previous lows in which we saw about $17.50 per share, at which point over the course of the long term, I'm still optimistic on Palantir's stock. We do certainly need to see earnings rapidly growing. We need to see top line revenue rapidly growing in order to sustain this upside momentum for Palantir's stock. And for sure to certainly see $45 per share once again, we're going to need to see a huge amount of growth in earnings posted through 2021 and beyond in order for this stock price to grow. So at Palantir Technologies, the final stock up on the list today is Tattooed Chef. I've already got a bit of analysis lined up here. But in a nutshell, I think my overall sentiment for Tattooed Chef stays the same as previous videos in which I've done from a technical analysis standpoint. We've very much broken what looks like to be this impulse, this corrective structure in which you can see, and then we've broken to the upside. We now look like we're correcting again. Potentially could come down to retest the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. And then we could potentially see further upside. I'm still targeting $27 per share. I believe that we will see that at some point. It could be the back end of 2021, even into 2022. But I'm still optimistic that Tattoo Chef will revisit all-time highs at $27 per share. And from my point of view, the technicals also line up quite nicely to see that upside target as well. So there are my thoughts, some stock price predictions for some of the stocks in which I'm invested into. There are some mixed feelings just generally from a technical analysis standpoint. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainties from the wider macroeconomic environment, and a lot of central bank policy, and that obviously dictates largely what stock prices will also do as well. So there's some mixed feelings. Technicals look mixed as well. Some look like they're lined up for potentially more upside, others perhaps not so much. But let's wait to see how this plays out. For me personally, as a long-term investor, and I think this is an important point to make, as a long-term investor, these are all high conviction plays for the long term. So I'm not too concerned about any kind of short-term fluctuations in price action. Like I say, I've got those free funds in my Trading212 account ready to go, ready to deploy straight into the market as and when I see opportunities to do so. And if some of these stock prices continue to fall over the course of the coming weeks or so ahead, you can be sure I'll give you guys another investment portfolio update with me making some live investments and putting some more money back into this investment portfolio. So with that said, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts on some of these stocks as well as what you're investing in as well and your own personal sentiment for the stock market right now. Are you holding some cash back or are you still actively investing into the market? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, guys, be sure to drop a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. That being said, see you over in the next video.